Now there are 7 more potential rule changes coming in the 2019-2020 season. And the last time we talked about the headgear rule, whether guys have to actually should wear headgear. The other rules we talked about were, of course, the third-party review, and whether that should be a thing, whether there should be a third-party ref who isn't on the mat reviewing. But now there are 7 more rules coming out. This came out from a national NCAA press conference, press release, and they said we're opening up to be more progressive in the sport. This should give everyone more freedom of expression and hopefully make the sport more inclusive. We have our eye on the future with the thought that this could help the sport grow. Now that sounds like a really political answer. I mean, let's be honest. Let's be more inclusive. Let's get everybody in. Very political answer. But let's actually examine what these rules are. So let's go through these 7 rules. The first one is shorts in wrestling. So wrestlers with this new rule, they'd be allowed to wear loose-fitting shorts and a tight shirt. So that's that like 2-piece wrestling uniform as opposed to a singlet. Now, let me know what you think about that uniform. It's been becoming a little bit bigger. You see guys wrestle like this at Flow Wrestling, who's number 1. And I actually saw my alma mater high school wrestled in the last couple seasons. They got rid of their singlets and ended up wrestling in shorts and tight shirts. I have to say I'm not a big fan of it. If guys want to wrestle like that, sure. You know, it brings, the argument is that it brings guys into the sport who don't want to wrestle in a singlet, like football players who may think they're too tough or whatever for a singlet, which I don't know how many of those guys are out there and how much that actually impacts their decision, but that's one of the rules. The next rule, hair. So right now, as the rule stands, the current rule is that the hair cannot extend below your shirt collar, and it cannot cover your earlobes. It has to be free of oils. You can't wrestle with facial hair, just like me, but you cannot have extremely long hair. Now, this is, I think, becoming a little bit bigger, and this is where the inclusivity comes in, is because if girls are wrestling, you know, should they be allowed to wrestle with the long hair? You saw the girls wrestle like that at Beat the Streets, you know, with their long hair. Now, should guys be allowed to wrestle like that? Sure. I mean, as long as you're not pulling on it, it doesn't really bother me that much. The next up is the video review. Now, this I thought was one of the most intriguing rule changes that they're coming up with. And these rules right now are not set in stone. They're not 100% going to happen. There's the NCAA committee going to talk about these on June 13th. Now, this rule has to do with challenging. And this, you know, looking at you a little bit, John Smith, but if there is an unsuccessful coach's challenge on the mat, this would result in a stalling warning for the wrestler if they lose the challenge. So if John Smith challenges Dayton Fix's takedown and it is ruled no good, that means that Dayton Fix would then be hit with a stalling warning. And if he already has another stalling warning, that will stack and he will be deducted, or the other wrestler will be awarded a point. I think this is pretty good. You know why? Because there are too many unnecessary challenges. Like, let's just throw the brick to see if we can get anything, or let's just throw the brick at the end of the match, and it holds things up a little bit. And look, right now you can't blame the coaches because that's the rule, and if they have the brick, throw it. You know, you can't really blame them. However, this could result in some very more greater tactics upcoming. Now, next up is another cool rule that I kind of like, is medical forfeits. This has been an issue over the last couple of years, particularly this year. You may remember when Shakur Rashid medically forfeited to Miles Martin in the Big Ten Finals, and this caused quite a stir-up. Rightfully so. However, you also have guys like Stefan Micic who medically forfeited because he was actually injured. Last year, you had Jason Nolf did the same thing. But, you know, people were wondering, like, should people be punished for this? Well, now a new rule that the committee wants to talk about is, yeah, you would be punished. This would actually be a loss on your record. So this would help a lot with seeding at nationals. And I think a lot of times it did hurt some guys, but it didn't hurt others. And I think if they add this as a definite loss, it would be great for seeding. However, I think the other side you have to look at is it shouldn't necessarily be a win for the other guy. So like if Pletcher and Micic are wrestling and Micic, he medically forfeits, he can't wrestle, Pletcher shouldn't necessarily get that win because I don't know if Pletcher can beat Micic, or if Micic is wrestling just some no-name wrestler, should that guy get a win over Micic if he has a medical forfeit? I don't know. But going into conference championships, that I think is pretty big. The next rule is weigh-ins. Quick rule. Just the current rule is guys weigh in an hour before their matches, up to an hour before, sometimes even closer to match time as far as dual meets go. This would allow up to 2 hours before 4 weigh-ins. I think that's good, mostly because guys weigh in, you get your practice session in and warm up in before the duel. I think that's a pretty good rule. And then the next rule is stalling warning. So right now, and the rule here is just increasing the points for consecutive stalling warnings. Right now what happens is you're given a warning, then 1 point, then 1 point, then 1 point, then 1 point on your 5th, and then you are disqualified from the match. And this new rule, on your 5th stalling warning, you'd be deducted 2 points, or the other wrestler would be given 2 points, and then you'd be TQ'd. So it's just another point. And then as far as hands to the face, which is the another rule change, is that hands to the face right now is an unnecessary roughness call, which means that if there is unnecessary roughness, other guys given a point right away. And this was a huge, annoying problem this year. Happened and screwed up a lot of guys, took a couple matches away from guys, and everybody's been harping at how horrible this rule is. And now what the committee wants to do is change it from an unnecessary roughness to what is called a illegal hold. So the illegal hold is mostly refs, they want to prevent that from happening, and they'll kind of give you a warning, they'll call it off before they're actually deducting a point. And those are the 7 rules that may be changing this upcoming season.